Hi everyone, in this video I will explain the horror film called Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark is an American supernatural horror film released on August 9, 2019. The story of this horror film begins in a small town called Mill Valley in Pennsylvania. It is Halloween Day in 1968. Stella told her father that she doesn't want to go trick-or-treat. Meanwhile, her father watched the Vietnam War on TV. While Stella was resting in her room, her best friend Augie and Chuck called her and told her that this isn't about trick-or-treat, it's about payback to Tommy. After the call, they collect eggs and turd out of the toilet to hit on Tommy. Then they came out of the house to celebrate the Halloween night and also to take revenge on Tommy. Meanwhile, Tommy and his friend are spending their time by hitting a scarecrow named Harold on his family farm. After that they went for the Halloween night. Stella, Augie, and Chuck were walking on the street waiting for Tommy. A few moments later, Tommy's car drove near them and stole the bag containing the smelly turd out of the toilet. Tommy and his friend were angry and ran after the three friends. The three friends meet with Ramon, who is a person from outside this town. Ramon was sitting in his car and watching a horror movie on a field. The three friends enter inside Ramon's car to hide from Tommy. Later Tommy found them hiding inside Ramon's car, but the volunteer told Tommy and his friend to go away because they are disturbing the movie show. Then Stella asked Ramon to explore a haunted house in the town. So, Stella, Augie, Chuck, and Ramon came to the haunted house in the town. After reaching the haunted house, they narrate the history of this haunted house to Ramon because he is new in this town. They told Ramon that this haunted house once belonged to the Bellows family, who helped found the town. The Bellows family had a daughter named Sarah that they never allowed to leave the house. But the real scary part is that her family erased Sarah from every single portrait. To this day, nobody's ever found a picture of Sarah. After that, Ramon broke the lock of the main door, and they all enter inside the supposedly haunted house. They further told Ramon that the family's daughter, Sarah, was accused of practicing black magic when the town's children began to die mysteriously. So she allegedly killed herself in 1898. Then, Augie and Chuck walk to the upstairs room and are playing hide and seek. Chuck hid inside a wardrobe, but when he opened the door of the wardrobe, he saw a scary woman and a dog inside the room. A few moments later, Augie opened the door of the wardrobe. Chuck came out and saw no one inside the room except him and his friend Augie. So he was scared and wanted to leave the house immediately. Meanwhile, Stella and Ramon find a secret room where the Bellows family kept their daughter Sarah and locked her away from the world. Augie and Chuck also came inside the secret room. Inside the secret room, they discover a storybook that belonged to Sarah. They open the storybook and see many scary stories written inside the storybook. At that moment, Tommy, along with his girlfriend Ruthie, came into the haunted house. Then he locks the door of the secret room. Ruthie, who is also the brother of Chuck, told him to open the door, but instead Tommy pushed her inside the secret room and locked the door. Then Tommy left the house. Inside the secret room, they tried to open the door but failed. Meanwhile, Stella read the storybook and told the spirit of Sarah to tell a story. At that moment Sarah's spirit came out of the house and opened the door of the secret room. Stella secretly put the storybook inside her bag. Then they all came out of the secret room of the haunted house. As they tried to leave the haunted house, they found out that Ramon's car was destroyed by Tommy. Since Ramon has nowhere to sleep for the night, Stella asked him to stay in her house. Thus Ramon came to Stella's house to stay the night. In her room, Stella read the story written in the storybook. While reading, she discovers a new story called Harold written in red blood ink on previously blank pages. The story mentions Tommy and how he will be killed by the scarecrow called Harold. Meanwhile, Tommy returned home, and her mother asked him to deliver eggs to the Wolvertons. So Tommy took the egg and was passing through the cornfield. While walking through the cornfield, Tommy is attacked by Harold. The scarecrow Harold stabbed Tommy with a pitchfork, causing him to vomit hay and undergo a violent transformation. The next morning Ramon is repairing his car in a workshop. At that time, a police officer walked near Ramon and told him that Tommy has been reported missing since last night. The police officer asked Ramon if he got into a fight with Tommy last night. The police officer suspected that Ramon may have a connection with the disappearance of Tommy. Meanwhile, Stella meets with her friends Augie and Chuck. She told them a new story called Harold was written in the storybook with red blood ink by itself. The new story called Harold mentions how Tommy was killed and turned into a scarecrow, but her friend does not believe the story. Then Stella took Ramon and came to Tommy's house. Ramon fears that the police will see him as a suspect in the disappearance of Tommy due to his earlier fight with Tommy. So, Stella and Ramon walk through the cornfield to investigate the death of Tommy. Inside the cornfield, they find the scarecrow called Harold dressed in Tommy's clothes. Stella is convinced that Tommy has been turned into a scarecrow, but Ramon still does not believe her story. After that, Stella returned the storybook of Sarah to its original place inside the haunted house. But when Stella returned home, she found the storybook back in her room and Ramon is reading the story. At that moment, Stella and Ramon see a new story with the title, The Big Toe, being written itself in the blank page of the storybook. The new story writes the scary incident that will happen to Augie. So, Stella and Ramon call Augie and try to warn him of the threat. But Augie could not understand anything. Then he unknowingly eats stew containing the big toe of a corpse. At that time, a scary corpse walked inside the house. The scary corpse is looking for its missing toe, which is inside a stew that Augie has been eating. Augie flees and hides under the bed of his room. But the scary corpse hunted and dragged him under the bed, making him disappear from the room. Later, Stella and Ramon came to the house and found out that Augie had disappeared and was missing. From this it is clear that any new story written in the storybook is happening in real life. The next day, Stella, Ramon, Chuck, and Ruthie meet together and discuss about the strange storybook. But Ruthie does not believe the story written in the storybook and left the place. Then the remaining 3 friends tried to destroy the storybook by burning it. But they were shocked after seeing the book refuse to burn. After failing to destroy the book, they decided to find another way to stop the hauntings by the storybook. So, they start researching the past incident that happened to Sarah, who is the owner of the storybook. After researching about Sarah's family, known as the Bellows family, they learned that the Bellows family owns a paper mill in the town. They also learned that, after Sarah killed herself, the Bellows family fired a maid named Sylvia Baptiste and her daughter, Lulu, who were thought to be responsible for teaching black magic to Sarah. They also find photos of the Bellows family on the newspaper except for Sarah. The most strange incident that happened to the Bellows family is that in just 1 year after Sarah's death in 1898, all the family members of Sarah mysteriously disappear from the house. However, all the names of the Bellows family can be found in the storybook. This suggested that the storybook where Sarah killed all her family members. Then a new story called The Red Spot started writing itself in the storybook. This new story mentions the scary incident that will happen to Ruthie. So they came near Ruthie, who was preparing to perform a musical show in the school. Meanwhile, Ruthie is getting her makeup ready for the musical play. She discovers a spider bite on her cheek. Then she goes to the school bathroom and starts poking at a swollen spider bite on her cheek. The swollen spider bite on her cheek explodes and releases hundreds of tiny spiders. At that time, Stella, Ramon, and Chuck came near Ruthie. Chuck poured water on Ruthie and saved her. Ruthie is alive, however, she is badly traumatized. Then she is taken to the hospital. The next day, the 3 friends came to the house of Lulu, who is the daughter of Sylvia Baptiste. After having a conversation with Lulu, they learned that Sarah did not die in the Bellows house or the present-day haunted house. Instead, Sarah killed herself in the hospital. So, Stella, Ramon, and Chuck came to the hospital. After reaching the hospital, they asked the staff for the record containing the details of Sarah. The staff told them that they put the files in the red room and it will take 6 weeks processing time. Since they are running out of time, they decided to secretly search for the red room inside the hospital. But Chuck refused because in his dream he was trapped in a red room, and a scary fat lady attacked him. So Stella and Ramon keep looking for the red room while Chuck waits for them. After some time, Stella and Ramon find the red room that contained the old record of Sarah. Inside the room they discover recordings that reveal Sarah's older brother, Dr. Ephraim, was her supervising doctor. Sarah's older brother, Dr. Ephraim, had performed electroshock therapy on Sarah and asked her to confess for killing the children of the town. But the deaths of children from the town were actually caused by the family's paper mill by poisoning the town's water with mercury. So the family members accused Sarah of black magic when the public got suspicious about the family's paper mill poisoning the town's water. After knowing Sarah was innocent, Stella and Ramon felt sympathy for her. Then they see a new story called The Dream, written by itself in the storybook with Chuck as the main character. Meanwhile, Chuck, while trying to hide from the hospital security, accidentally triggers an alarm that floods the hallways in the same red light from his nightmares. Then the scary pale lady from Chuck's nightmares appears in the hallway. Chuck tried to escape, but the scary pale lady appeared in front of him from all sides. The scary pale lady attacked and absorbed Chuck inside her body. After some time, Stella and Ramon came there and found Chuck's pen as the only thing left of him. Then the hospital staff and security found them and handed them over to the police. Stella and Ramon told the police officer that their friends were killed by the storybook, but the police officer did not believe it. Then the police officer told Stella that she can leave but not Ramon because he is a Vietnam War draft dodger who avoids joining the armed forces. Stella doesn't want to leave Ramon alone in the cell, so both of them stay inside the cell that night. After some time, the police officer sees a new story written with red blood ink called Ni Tai Do Tai Walker in the storybook with Ramon as the main character. At first the police officer thought that Stella was playing a trick on him. But suddenly, his dog begins to act strangely by staring at the chimney. Ramon realizes the next creature that will attack him will be the jangly man, which is a monster from a campfire story that scared him. Then the dog ran away from the police station. At that moment the scary head of the jangly man falls down the chimney along with the body parts. The jangly man is able to build itself up into a scary monster from body parts and killed the police officer. Then the monsters tried to attack Ramon. While the monster is trying to enter the cell, Stella took the key from the dead body of the police officer, and they both escape from the police station. Ramon tries to lure the monster away with a police car while Stella goes to the Bellows haunted house to try and reason with the spirit of Sarah. The jangly man follows Ramon and continues attacking him. Ramon hit a truck with the car and trapped the monster for a moment. Then he also fled to the haunted house, but the monster still continued to follow and hunt him. After Stella enters the haunted house, she is pulled back in time when Sarah was alive. Meanwhile, in the present day, Ramon finds a new story called The Haunted House in the storybook with Stella as the main character. Then he tries to hide inside the haunted house, but the jangly man finds him and tries to kill him. After Stella is pulled back in time, she witnesses the family members looking for her because they thought she was Sarah. The member finds Stella hiding under the table. They drag her and lock her inside the secret room of the house. Inside the secret room, Sarah's spirit appeared in front of Stella. Stella begins telling the real story of Sarah and how she was victimized by her family for killing the children in the town. Stella promises Sarah that she will tell the truth of her innocence if she stops harming and killing people. Then Sarah forces Stella to write her story in the book using her blood. After Stella wrote the real story of Sarah in the book, Sarah's ghost and the jangly man vanished. After that, Stella and Ramon came out of the haunted house. Stella writes the truth about Sarah's life in the papers, keeping her promise, but not everyone believes her. Ramon finally accepts his enlistment in the armed forces and shares an emotional goodbye with Stella before he leaves for the Vietnam War. Ruthie is also now recovered from the trauma. With Ruthie having recovered, Stella, holding the storybook, starts looking for a way to bring her best friend Augie and Chuck back to life.